So maybe you can tell me, who's the smartest guy in Ukraine? Smartest guy in Ukraine. Will I give you a clue? Are you ready? Here we go. Now, this guy may be a clown, but he's no fool. And if you can figure out what's wrong with this picture, then you might be able to understand how 2 weeks ago I was able to predict that Zelensky would sign a deal with Putin. I knew because there's something wrong with this picture. Can you see what it is? It's Vladimir Zelensky about to address the Danish parliament. Well, okay, how about this picture? Can you tell me what's wrong with this? Is Zelensky about to address Norway? Or hey, how about this one? Can you tell me what's wrong with this picture? This is him about to address the House of Commons in Great Britain. And if you can just tell me what's wrong with these pictures, then you'll be able to begin to unravel the deepest secrets of this Ukraine thing and all that's gone before it over the course of the last few years. It's all in those pictures, and I'm not the only one to solve it, folks. Take another look. Actually, you just can't miss it in the Japanese parliament address by Zelensky. I mean, he was so good they had to have him on twice. 2 video links. And that's what's wrong with the pictures, folks. They're all video links. He's not there in person. Why is he not there in person? Surely the Russians would have guaranteed his safe travel. After all, they need somebody to negotiate with. They can't go taking out the president of Ukraine. He would be able to leave Kiev. In fact, the routes were open. The reason Zelensky wasn't leaving Kiev because he knew that the moment he left Kiev would be the moment he lost his grip on power. You see, it was the failure of Zelensky to depart that was the first signal that, in fact, everything had changed the moment Vladimir Putin decided he was ready to bite the bullet and cross the border. Because from that moment on, Zelensky became extremely valuable indeed. He was somebody who could negotiate a peace deal on behalf of the nation, somebody Vladimir Putin now needed, and this is what I was saying over 2 weeks ago. Similarly, Zelensky now needed protection because the grisly reality of all this is that had Zelensky left, he would have merely turned into a puppet. You see, they wanted him on the outside as a puppet, going around selling the ongoing, decades-long war in Ukraine as it continued to bleed over years, bleed the Soviet Union. That was the plan. They wanted him to head up a government in exile. But Zelensky, he's no fool, clown though he may be. Zelensky knew that all the neocons wanted was a performing flea, and he wasn't going to play that role.
The President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky. Slava Ukraina! Slava Ukraina!
Glory to heroes.
Zelensky was keeping his options open. He was playing the game, but he wasn't there. Smart move, Zelensky. To give you an idea of the deep politics, here's what's going on right now as I do this report in Pakistan, where China has weighed in on the side of Imran Khan, the current leader of Pakistan, who's been abandoned by the Pakistani army and who's facing no confidence votes. The reason for the dissatisfaction of the New World Order with Imran Khan was a visit he made to Russia, seeming to indicate that he's ready to start tilting China's direction. And in fact, China, in the last few hours, has indicated that it is prepared to offer its unqualified and fullest support for Imran Khan. So, have a listen to what he says the New World Order wanted to do about him.
Who wants to assassinate Imran Khan? He has said, your party people are saying there's a plan to assassinate Imran Khan. Imran Khan says there's a conspiracy to remove him. And he says there is a secret letter which will expose the conspiracy to remove him.
Oh yeah, Zelensky, like Imran Khan, knows that once you become no longer useful, then you move from making history to being history quite quickly. And that's why I knew when Zelensky wasn't budging, there was a damn good reason. Let's get real. The way it works is the people you do the deal with is the people who have the big turret thing pointed at your castle or your parliament or your presidential building. And that's the people you do the negotiating with. So there's no point in heading off to the west because the people Zelensky needed to do a deal with were in the east. And he knew that the moment Putin crossed the border. And then we had a week. I said not only would a deal be done, but I expected it to be done fairly soon, quickly. Hopefully some indications would appear within days, I said on the 14th of March, and indeed by the 19th, Putin was announcing victory, and there were early indications because a report came out that Ukraine was considering abandoning its, conceding its neutrality, put it that way. And then that was quickly withdrawn, that report. That was another clear sign indeed that the game was on and that a potential resolution was in place. Let me show you the culmination of that as the peace deal I spoke about in the report yesterday has now gone to Moscow, where, according to Russia Today, Ukraine is ready to fulfill key Russian demands according to Russia. These are more like terms of surrender, folks, than they are terms of a negotiation, because these have been sent to Vladimir Putin. It's obvious that there's a peace deal in place, and one of the things you might want to consider is why the leading blog, which has been following all this, the Duran, is still flailing about 24 hours later, trying to come to terms with what's just happened. I can't understand it. It's obvious a deal has now been done, and the Russians are signalling through these stories on Russia Today what the realities are. The other reality is this: a story on Russia Today about what happens if Russia turns off the gas taps to Europe. You see, that wasn't just an idle threat. That's been the whole game plan, and that's how I knew this was going to come to an early culmination. Because indeed, Putin was on board with that when about 7 days ago, he first raised this issue of payment in rubles. And he gave a week. He gave a week for that to be put in place. In other words, he said to Europe, there's going to be no long, drawn-out game thing going on here where you slowly bleed us dry over the course of the next few years, making false promise after false promise and fake negotiations and all the rest of that. You see, Putin was there to come in and put it right up to Germany. That's what he was there to do. He was there to put an existential question to Germany. Do you wish to freeze this winter? Do you wish to continue as a nation? Do you wish to have a future or remain a vassal? And he wasn't giving them months to consider that question. He was giving them 7 days. After 7 days, how do you expect me to give you, in effect, free gas for your euros or whatever that you could subsequently confiscate off me? Obviously. So these are your realities, and you have 7 days. That was something to bring a sharp focus to negotiations. At the same time as that was taking place, Putin had already accomplished most of his military objectives in the southeast. And indeed, the grisly treatment of Russian prisoners of war in the southeast is going to, I fear, cause humanitarian responses which nobody can be proud of. But have no doubt that that grisly confrontation with the neo-Nazi and outright Nazi forces in the southeast of Ukraine is going to continue and is completely unaffected by this, in effect, quasi-ceasefire, which is in Kiev. So now you must start to realize what was really going on here all the time. Now we're about to see the deep story fully. I said yesterday I'd lay it out, and I expected to have to lay a lot of it out with convincing argument, but indeed Lavrov is beating me to the punch. Where down in meetings today in Asia, he has said that the West was attempting to turn Ukraine into a second Afghanistan. Exactly. A new Afghanistan in the heart of Europe. Why? To destroy Europe. Why else? To destroy the potential for Europe and Russia to come together with China in a Eurasian bloc which could challenge Western hegemony. This is the Kissinger vision. This has always been the Anglo-American concern, to prevent the emergence of a European, Russian, Asian trading bloc. The Silk Road, which China is putting together. So they were just in recent weeks responding to Russian invasion which was taking place in Ukraine. What's been happening here is they were getting ready to go in. Not just for a little bit of a war, but a war which was best prepared for as follows. A war which was best prepared for by staging a global psychological operation designed to produce totalitarianism globally, enable top-down control of populations, render those populations compliant and submissive to the instructions of the New World Order elite, and get them to sit there while it wages war on Russia first and then China, because it's simply not prepared to release its grip on empire. And simultaneously, those COVID-designed obedience training exercises would also give them totalitarian control internally, so that if they could not exploit others externally any longer, at least with that operation, they would be able to control their own populations and essentially colonize them in the same way as they, and treat them in the same way as they treated the colonials down the decades, down the centuries, the European powers, the European royalty, the old money, the people for whom you and I are mere pawns. They were getting ready for a big war. That's what they were getting ready for. And this guy, this performing stooge here, was going to be the guy who would go around the world in person, not by video link, in person, rallying support around the world for their planned for 10-year-long war in the center of Europe. So, time to consider the implications of all that, eh? They, as in we, the West, in inverted commas, the international community, was about to wage World War III. And guess what kind of World War III they were about to wage?
Bioweapons. Russia claims it has uncovered 30 biolabs in Ukraine, 30 biolabs in Ukraine. What happened to these labs? What happened at these labs, rather? According to Russia, weaponization, they were making biological weapons. They claim America was developing bioweapons in Ukraine. Listen to this.
The Russians seized documents in these bioweapons labs, and they can tell you all about them. The scale of the program is impressive. In addition to the military development, the US Agency for International Development, the George Soros Foundation, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are directly involved in its implementation. Scientific supervision is carried out by leading research organizations, including the National Laboratory in Los Alamos, which develops nuclear weapons as part of the Manhattan Project. All this activity is carried out under the full control of the Pentagon. And finally, the Russians claimed that Hunter Biden's investment firm had financed this biological weapons program in Ukraine. Not just a claim that, but as we now know, an actual verified fact. So, I put it to you that indeed it was the West which was about to prepare to wage war in Ukraine. A very dirty war, and a war which was designed to escalate and designed to be a bleeding sore in the heart of Europe, which would create crisis and which would hold the entire development of the rest of the world back. It's ideal. That's what these people do. And that's what they were doing. And the people involved as well, it's not just Hunter Biden's not what you're up against here. And Sleepy Joe's not the president. These are the people you're up against. Fortunately, some of them dead. But this is the apparatus you're up against. And as you go down the line there, if it wasn't for old Trumpy getting in 2016, all this stuff that you're going through right now will be playing out some time ago, folks, because Hillary was the chosen one to do this. Hillary was the chosen one to lead the biowarfare program and the World War III, which these people have been implementing, but bringing to a crescendo as they realized that only world war would serve their interests now to hold the rest of the planet back. That's who you're up against. China is currently complaining that in addition to the 30 biowarfare labs in Ukraine, the US has around about 300 more such experimental facilities. So now the question you've got to start asking yourself is, who did the COVID? Was it really something that escaped from a Chinese lab? Is the China virus really something that originated in China, or was China sheep-dipped? If you don't know what sheep-dipped is, we'll go into that in the next video. Now you've got to ask yourself, who is the suspect most likely to have been engaging in biowarfare programs that were reckless and outrageous? Because what was going on in Ukraine in these research facilities, according to the documents uncovered, was indeed reckless and outrageous. So now a different picture. Now COVID's not an accident. Now COVID's the preparation for World War III, designed to produce that compliance in the population. And these people are just the people to carry it out. It's an ongoing process, and standing behind these operators and implementers are some very powerful and wealthy families and peoples. And they don't balk at doing stuff that would horrify you or I. Biowarfare, it's not really much of a change from the usual MO. And we ain't out of the woods yet with them. We now have a peace deal. Putative. I am absolutely certain that Vladimir Zelensky's security is now being assured, guaranteed, and overseen by Vladimir Putin, who together with Zelensky and those people in Europe who hopefully have been part of the preparation work which has been laid for peace deals to come in Ukraine in the week or so ahead. There's going to be meetings next week. Then we will see this thing brought to a conclusion. But we are not out of the woods with these people. These people are now cornered. These people are now very dangerous. But they are also lacking in that vital vigor of a youthful organization which has capacity and effectiveness that's not being demonstrated. They are weak. They are running on old momentum. So let's take a look at some of the background of all this, folks, and start waking up to what's really going on. When these people told you that they were getting ready for a multi-decadal war, which would last 40 years or more, back in 2001, when Rumsfeld and the others who are acting as fronts people for this cabal told you that back in. They weren't joking. They absolutely meant it. They can't sustain it constantly at a high level. There has to be intermissions and gaps. But it's relentless. And it's torn apart countries you've seen, Libya, Afghanistan, Syria, where Putin stopped it. I'm not overconfident, but things are moving against them. Things are moving against this power apparatus. And in the last few days, there have been meetings taking place, which haven't really been reported, between foreign ministers of Russia, India, and China. And as I say, ongoing turmoil in Pakistan. It's a dynamic situation we're in right now. We're game on. This is World War III. This is the kinetic phase of World War III. The COVID was the psychological preparation phase. Congratulations to those of you who resisted. Didn't know you were about to deal with World War III. You just took it on face value. I didn't want to compound your problems by layering a whole load of World War III on top of you. COVID was enough to deal with at the time. But now you see it in the full context, and you see the full context that you're in. We are in a good place, but we have to get that over the line. But we also have to bear in mind that we're dealing with people who will stop at literally nothing. However, we'll see. I will take a look in the next analysis tomorrow at that big question and the answer to it. So who did COVID and how and why? And also take a look at where we're headed in all of this. As this old regime loses grip, throwing up now only an old man in place of a leader, and at the same time threatens us all with considerable economic challenges and potential for something unexpected to come in the days and weeks ahead. It's never going back. We can but move forward now. The die is cast, and the future will now unfold. That long period of things staying the same, stuck, is over, and change is underway. Let's hope it works in the way that the encouraging signs so far indicate it's headed. All right, I'll be back with more on that, on the geopolitics of all this, and on the economics of all this, on the cryptocurrency, on the digital currency control, on all of that in the episodes coming up. I hope you'll join me for that in the days ahead. And we'll go out with, just to lighten the tone a little bit and give a bit of encouragement, with something that is very encouraging from Joseph Dunne, josephdunne.com, for the album, which is very good and for sale. But this is a track from Joe Dunne called Heaven's Way. I'll leave you with that. I'll be back very shortly with more, and I hope you'll join me soon. In the meantime, for breakfornews.com, this has been Fintan Dunne reporting. Thanks for joining me.
We walk the road now, the road of darkness. We walk that road till the very end. We could not see before the sunset. We could not see before the dawn. You search forever now in a willing stone, and peace evades you now at every turn. Come now to a land, to a hand that guides you. Come now to a place where we call home. Don't close heaven's way. Don't close it at all. Don't close heaven's way. Don't close it at all. With whispered words they say, with whispered words they say, with whispered words they say, hey, hey, hey. Don't close heaven's way. Don't close it at all. Don't close heaven's way. Don't close it at all. The angels guide heaven's way. With whispered words they say, The angels guide heaven's way. With whispered words they say. 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 Hey, don't close heaven's way. Oh, please don't. Oh, don't close it at all. Don't close heaven's way. Hey, hey. Don't close it at all.